Hello, good morning, and welcome to our online service today.
Yes.
We have waited a long time for this day, haven't we?
Too long indeed.
55 years, some of you have been waiting for England to finally make a final.
Yeah, and now it's here. I'm buzzing. I've got my shirt on. I'm already ready.
Yes.
I've slept in this. I'm ready. I'm ready to beat Italy. Ready to win.
Very excited about the game tonight. It is going to be so good. Yep.
Obviously, if you're not from England, apologies, but you have got to realise, 55 years, 19 years for me, 30 something,
for me,
33 years for you.
Yeah.
So
any Scottish or Welsh people,
no, exactly.
bear with us this morning. Let us have this day, please.
Exactly, and get your score predictions in the chat. We want to see what you think about the game.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a quick quiz for you this morning for you. I'm going to ask Ben these questions. You can put the answers in the chat as well. So we'll see how Ben does with this. So question 1 is, how is the company Info Technology Supply more commonly known?
Info Technology Supply.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Apple.
Apple. It's not Apple. It's not. Okay. Question 2. See if you got that in the chat. Info Technology Supply. Okay, question 2. What word can be an adjective or a noun but means approaching?
Adjective or a noun but means approaching.
Yeah.
No idea.
No idea?
Nope.
Okay.
Not got a clue.
Put them in the chat if you think. And question 3. In baseball, the fourth base is known as what plate?
Home plate?
It is. Would you like to have a guess at the first 2 questions now you know the last one was home?
Home.
So the first question, Info Technology Supply, more commonly known?
Home.
No.
Oh, it's.
It's.
ITS.
ITS. What word can be an adjective or noun meaning approaching?
Yeah, do you know what? I actually thought of coming, but then I thought, how's that a noun?
Coming if something is a noun as well as an adjective.
Oh, okay. I'll take your word for it.
So the answers were it's, coming, and home. Well done if you got all those 3 questions right.
Yeah, I didn't, but...
Okay. With this morning, we are continuing with our Kingdom theme, so we really hope you enjoy our service. We've got Rick Hogg speaking this morning. So let's go and join the service.
Our endless praise we cry. worship Jesus this morning. Thank you, Jesus. You are worthy of our praise, Lord Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. No one else is worthy. Only you are worthy. Jesus, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
had given up his life, the darkest day in history. There on a cross they made for sinners. For every curse his blood atoned. One final breath and it was finished. But not the end we could have known. For the earth began to shake, and the veil was torn. What sacrifice was made as the heavens roared. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. There was a moment when the sky lit up, a flash of light breaking through. When all was lost, he crossed eternity. The King of life was on the move. Yes, Jesus. For in a dark, cold tomb, where our Lord was laid, one miraculous breath, and we're forever changed. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. All hail King Jesus. We adore you, God. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. How good is our God? How good is our God? Let every knee come bow before the King of Kings. Let every tongue confess that He is Lord. Lift up your shout. Let us join with all of heaven, singing holy, singing all hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. And if you feel like you're in a dark, cold tomb, Jesus can resurrect you. He can resurrect you. If anyone knows about resurrection, Jesus knows it all. Jesus knows it all. How marvelous, how wonderful is our Savior's love for us. How marvelous. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. All hail King Jesus. Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior of the world. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Lord of heaven and earth. All hail King Jesus. All hail the Savior
Tickets are now available to book in for our Sunday service next week. You can book in at our website at bridgebolton.com. Don't forget you can book as a group of 6 or as 2 households to sit together in our service. Also, we have Bridge Kids Youngers for those aged 2 up to nursery and Bridge Kids Olders for school years reception up to year 6 running as well. You can book your children in for those on the same link. We look forward to seeing you for church next week. On Sunday the 18th of July, we are having a picnic and sports day in the park. After our 11:30 service at around 1 p.m, we'll be meeting at Leverhulme Park just off Long Lane to celebrate and come together as church family. Please bring your own picnic and your own picnic blanket or chairs to sit on, and it would be great to meet together, have some races and things for the children and maybe some for the adults as well. So please be there. It'll be great to come together as church family on Sunday the 18th. We'll see you there.
If you guys want to give as part of the worship, then you can do so at bridgebolton.com/give.
Yep, and if you have any prayer requests or any questions about us here at the Bridge Church, then please do get in touch with us. You can message us through our Facebook page or Instagram page, or you can email us at welcome@bridgebolton.com, and we'll get back to you and see how we can help and support you in this time.
Yep, so it's now time to hand over for Rick for today's message.
I'll get the reference out of the way. A friend of mine has invited everybody tonight at 8 o'clock for a national prayer meeting. Lasts about 90 minutes. Might extend a little bit longer. There'll be a 15-minute break after about 45. And then hopefully everyone will be happy. And if you're wanting a Bible verse on that, he also sent me this. It's in Ezekiel 40. I think a few of you might be friends with him as well, like me. 44, verse 28, it says, "He then brought me into the inner court through the south gate, and he measured the south gate. It had the same measurements as the others." So if you're thinking about anything today, south gate is in the Bible. It's a bit of an ad-lib stretch, I know. If we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. Most of you... In fact, let's just do I'm not looking for ages. If you remember Jeff Hurst's goal, you are so lucky. I was going to say put your hand up, but we'll not. You are so lucky that you have been able to do or see something like that. So hopefully today we will do that. Now, that's the reference done, other than wearing a shirt all day. Last week, Helena started and looked at the introduction to kingdom and what is kingdom and how this kingdom that we have been called to, or this kingdom that we are part of, is a little bit different. And as I was thinking about it this morning, as we think, or how we're brought up in the British educational system, his kingdom is all about fighting. It's about kings, it's about going to war, it's about those Scots north of Hadrian's Wall and having a bit of a fight with them. It's about the Europeans and them invading us and us invading them. And actually, the kingdom of God's not like that. It's completely different. It's about actually doing things in an opposite way to build. So in kingdom, in the old days, it was, let's go to war. This kingdom, as I'm going to explain later on, it's about, let's go and do. Let's go and be. Let's go and help. Because Helena talked earlier last week about actually it being hidden and about yeast and about pearls and about actually having to invest and do something for this. So we're going to look on and we're going to look at 1 Peter and we're going to start at chapter 2 and we're going to go from verse 9 to 17. Then it says this, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Then it goes on. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires, which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human authority, whether to the emperor as the supreme authority or to the governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. For it is God's will that by doing good you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. Live as free people, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Live as God's slaves. Show proper respect to everyone. Love the family of believers. Fear God. Honour the emperor. There's 2 things I want us to look at first of all, as that passage is broken into 2. One, it's reminding us of who we are. And the second one is kind of how we should live. So if we look at the first part, it says, who are we? We are a chosen people. We are a royal priesthood. We are a holy nation. We are God's possession, and we have received mercy. We don't earn this. We don't earn it by doing good things. We don't earn our way into a kingdom. We're invited. Everyone. And what we have to be careful of as people who might call ourselves Christians or followers of God or we come to church, we're not special. And we can't make ourselves as that. We are all invited. Every single person. So when we look at people, and I know people do this, because I might have done this once or twice. Why do people do that? Well, we did maybe once upon a time. And by somebody and being invested in us, we were able to change. We were able to have that mercy that we don't deserve, that we've not done anything to earn it. It's just given. We just have to accept it. Which is sometimes really hard when we think about how we might have been. Doing good doesn't make God like us anymore. Doesn't make him love us anymore than he already does. So if we try and do good because we think that's what we should do, good for doing it, but it's not going to make God love us anymore. God's kingdom is a part of, we just do it because of the mercy we have received. We do good to show others what we have benefited from, not because it's like going to get us a better house in heaven. It's not going to build us some better bricks. Because then as we go on to it, in Galatians 5 verse 1 it says, and I haven't spoken to Cookie about this at all, and he's kept saying the same things this morning, even before we started. In Galatians 5 verse 1 it says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm and do not let yourself be burdened. Because if we look at the second part, and this is where we have to be careful sometimes as we look at it, and I know I've swayed long and hard about this. When I look through it and it goes on, it says how we should live, saying, abstain from these desires. When we think about desires, we might think about alcohol, we might think about lust, we might think about lots of different things, but sometimes desires can be a bit of gossip. Just scratching that little bit of an itch we've got. Now, when we think if we eat too much or we drink too much, then it affects our physical health. And that's easy to see. But what can we do that we need to abstain from that affects our emotional health, our spiritual health, that from the outside can't be seen? Because I know over the last 2 years, the last 2 years, everybody at some point has done something different that they might not have done. And when you look back, you think, what have I done that for? But don't beat yourself up by it. We have all received mercy. And that's why it says, don't use the freedom to abuse that mercy. But we have been given mercy so we can live better lives and we can show what we're going to do for God. Because it says, if we look, and I'm going to go to 2 stories in the Bible that I need to use to help us, because I can put it into better context if I use people. If I just go through a list of stuff, then it's a bit out there. But if I can put it into context for me, I'm hoping you can understand this as well. First one I want to look at is the prodigal son. And we all probably know the story of the prodigal son. It could be the story of 2 sons, to be honest. It could be the story of some bloke who stayed at home and some bloke who left. But we all pick on the prodigal son because he went away. And he had this freedom. He had this freedom that he wanted. He took his inheritance and he went and was free. Very soon he realized he wasn't as free as he thought he had been, because he got trapped by these desires, by everything when he spent all his money. And he's looking back and he goes, actually, if I went back to my dad and I lived as a servant and a slave, I'd be more free than I am now. And sometimes we have to be careful with what we view freedom as. Because if we view freedom as, I can do what I want, when I want, why I want, how I want, and no one can stop me, that's true. But there's always some knock on at some point somewhere. Whereas the prodigal son, when he went home and his dad said, no, you're not my servant, you're my son. That's what we can be like as well. We just need to realize who we are. Because he had a brother, and his brother stayed at home, and his brother did all the right things, but he missed out. His brother lived in the freedom that he thought was freedom by doing the right things, by doing good. And then he spat his dummy out at the end and said, I didn't get any of that, what you've given my other brother. But his dad says it was there all along. So, but the fact that the brother was doing stuff religiously, he missed out on the freedom that he could have. Please don't come every Sunday and miss out on what the freedom we have got because we do things out of religion. We do things out of habit. Now, I know that's really hard to have done things out of habit for the last 18 months. But what has become habit in the last 18 months? I know I've not been here every Sunday. I've not been here as often as I should. Why? Because sometimes, I've missed the booking. Never mind. I won't go to the second one because it impacts my family more. Just being honest. I've looked back over this last 18 months and gone, I've got 4 kids. It's going to be easier just to stay at home because if I come to the second service, it's going to impact all my day. When actually, if I look at it, I'm looking at it completely wrong. If I bring my kids to the second service, it does impact my day, and it might impact my week far better than me taking my kids to the park or something like that. And this is me talking to me. I'm not having a go at anybody, trust me. Because when we carry on then, if we look at what he did, he had the freedom of his father's stuff, the brother, but he just missed out. Please don't miss out on the freedom that we have. Don't look at being a Christian or coming to church or whatever you view discipleship as or whatever as living in a box, because it gives you so much freedom by having these things that we can live by, because you don't start having these costs later on that we have to pay, because there's always a bill at the end of something. Whether it's a meal, whether you go out, whether it's how you live your life, at some point there's a bill and someone has to pay. And we're dead fortunate in the grand scheme of the great bill and everything like that. Jesus has paid it for us and give us mercy. But we just have to remember and we have to realize who and what we are. Second person from the Bible I want us to kind of look at was Moses. Now, we all know Moses if you've come to church for a while. Or even if you go to primary school, they talk about Moses. And they put him in some tar, in some bulrushes, in a little boat that keeps him safe. They take him out. He goes in as a prince. And he lives as a prince of Egypt. The best life you could ever have. And then at one point, as he gets older, he decides to step in and do what he feels called to and intervene on behalf of his people. There's an accident happens. Best put it that way. Someone dies. The next day, he goes back and he sees 2 people fighting, arguing. And he steps in and he says, "What are you doing?" Well, the Israelites then turn to him and say, are you going to kill us or strike us like you struck him? And Moses panics and then legs it and goes into quite a long period of isolation. We've had 2 years. He had a bit longer. Went living in the desert with some sheep. For those of you who have watched the Jeremy Clarkson program, sheep do your head in. So imagine just living with a pile of sheep in the middle of nowhere and never bumping into anybody. Because Moses panicked and ran into a form of isolation. I've got a question for us on that. Does that sound familiar? Because it does for me. Fast forward some time, God appears in a burning bush. Moses starts making excuses to why he can't do something. Got another question. Does that sound familiar? Especially at this moment in time, and do not hear this as a call for you have to be in church in a few weeks when we open up, because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, over these last 18 months, have we made excuses for why we can't do something? Just like Moses did. Because Moses said, I'm slow of speech, I'm a stammerer. A bit like I'm doing today, to be honest. Bit of a stutter. Get nervous in front of people when they're talking. God gave him someone to help. God's not going to ask you to do something and then just leave you on your own. He might ask you to do something that's a little bit scary, and then he might say, they're going to help you though. Because when you look back later on, he was 80 when he went and spoke to Pharaoh. 80. So if you're not 80 yet, or if you're over 80, you've not finished. Don't worry about it. Moses, at 80, spoke in front of the most powerful man in the world at the time. And how could he do that? Well, he was brought up as a prince. But when he was in isolation, he'd forgotten that. What have you done? Where have we been? That isolation's made us forget who we are. Made us wonder who we are. So maybe not forget, but question. Did this really happen? Imagine Moses sat on his own with his sheep by a fire at night thinking, did I make up that I grew up as a prince? It was that long ago. Can I remember that? Or have I just made it up because it makes me get through the day better? But actually, he was then able to use his experience to stand in front of the most powerful man in the world. Because if you then fast forward into Acts, in the book of Acts, recorded by Luke, it says this in Acts 7, verse 22. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and action. So Moses, he stood there saying to God, I'm a stammerer, I'm a stutterer, I can't speak. History remembered him as a powerful speaker. History remembered him as someone who stepped forward and helped save his whole nation. But how he viewed himself at that point when he was just coming out of isolation was completely different. So if we look at the two people, we look at Moses and we look at the prodigal son, both had periods of isolation of a sort. And as those periods of isolation affected them differently, they viewed themselves differently. Prodigal son, well, actually, if I was kind of a servant or a slave to my dad, I'd be better off. So his ultimate freedom had made him realize he needed that little bit of guidance to help him. Moses had looked back and gone, well, I'm a stammerer, God. I can't speak. But then history remembered that he was completely different. History remembered him. When I said Moses, you all think, yeah, the plagues. But actually, if you carry on reading through Moses, Aaron becomes Aaron becomes more and more of a side note. Because as Moses develops and as Moses grows in confidence and stature and trusts God more, he can step forward from this person who's a stammerer, this person who's got an impediment, to somebody who history remembers as somebody completely different, as the saviour of their world, the saviour of their leading through. You've got taking them out of Egypt, you walking through the Red Sea, you walking around the desert. All of these things are from someone who was a stammerer, who had some form of impediment. And in those days, not much has changed to an extent, I guess, or it's getting better. People with impediments were viewed as differently. Now, if in those days God can use somebody like that There's no reason today why you can't. There's no reason why God says, do you know what? And like I said earlier on, here is my mercy. Just got to accept it. Because God won't force mercy on us. But by actually stepping in and saying, do you know what, God, I'm going to follow what you asked me to do. That's where freedom can come from. And that's how the kingdom works. We think of kings as people, like I said, Henry VIII, James, all those other kings who go to war. That's not what our God does. He does it in a different way. Flips it completely around and says, this is how you do it. Instead of fighting someone, show them love. Because it says here, it says people will watch. So people who don't read a Bible will read our lives. They will read us. They will look for consistency across this. They will look for how consistent we are in how we speak. They will look for how consistent we are on social media. They will look for how consistent we are in our lives. Are we up and down all the time? Or are we consistent because we know that we are living in this freedom that we can get? As the band come up, I've got a couple of questions for us all. No judgment, no anything. Just questions that I've written for myself, that I'm asking myself. How are we going to view ourselves? Are we going to view ourselves as something different than what God views us? Because it's so easy to do. Because the only times we really see ourselves is in a mirror. What I see of me now is not what you see of me. And that's the same vice versa. You can see all of me, apart from the inside. I can see the inside, but I can't see all of me. So God knows, and God says it's okay. Because we can choose to step into this freedom that we have available to us. It's up for us to have. Moses had the excuse. He was fluent. I don't know if Egyptian was the language back then, but he was fluent in Egyptian, being brought up in the palace. He knew how the kings of Egypt spoke. He knew he had held conversations with them. One of them was his granddad for a long time, but he'd forgotten what he had done. Do we need to remember what God has done with us so we know that when we step forward now, he will be there again? Because sometimes when we've been locked away or we've isolated ourselves or it's been forced upon us, it's scary coming out. And like I said before, this isn't a call to have a ram-filled room in a couple of weeks. It's about, actually, have we been in isolation spiritually on our own at home? Because there's times I have. Have we been isolated emotionally over these last 18 months? If you have and you need to speak to somebody, please reach out. Please contact church. Please do whatever you need to do. Because I'm quite fortunate in my world being a teacher. My life hasn't changed too much in terms of going to work. But I've seen people's lives who have. And I know how hard it is. I know it's not easy. So today, do we need reminding? How do we see ourselves now to how we could see ourselves in the future? Because how we see ourselves in the future might just help us take that first step forward today. It might be however you need it. Because if I go back to the very thing I opened on, it was this. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you have not received mercy, but now you have. You might view yourself as a lower class citizen because of isolation. You might not view yourself as people. But it says here, but now you are the people of God. We have received mercy. Not worked for, not earned, not deserved, not anything by anything we've done, but we are given mercy. So as we sing this song now, think about what do we need to maybe step forward from? Forgetting the old and stepping into new. Now, that might mean loads of different things for loads of different people. Please don't hear me saying, leave your job, go and do something else. Please don't hear me saying anything other than take this time while we sing this song to think and pray with God. Because then we know, actually, as we step forward, whatever it is individually, and it's not a corporate thing. Coming together is a corporate thing, but right now it's for you to say, God, this is what I need your help with. This is what I might need someone to come along and stand with me. God, you know I'm a stutterer. You know I can't speak. You know I can't do this. You know I have insecurities about leaving my house. You know I've got anxieties about this. You know I'm struggling with this. Please help me. Because Moses, the prodigal son, Noah, Gideon, keep going through them. There's all a point where they view themselves as something. God steps in and then change happens. Thank you very much.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? Here was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive, and all my failures I tried to hide. Here was my tomb till I met you. You called my name, then I ran out of that grave.
Lance, Iris, Anna, Ian, Hoggy, Clive, Sheila, Nigel. He called your name. Do you know, I grew up in a really wealthy house. As you can tell, I'm very posh. We had a full-size snooker table. We had a swimming pool. But the minute, as a young man, I accepted Christ into my life, something changed, and it's what Hoggy just ministered on. It wasn't that I had more boundaries I couldn't do, it's that I was set free. What a thought that is, and what a truth that is. You know, as the band just lead us into that again, he called our name and we walked out. I walked out as a young man, out of that, what I thought was life and the fullness of life. You know, that momentary win that we're going to get tonight, definitely going to win, will last for a moment. And then next week and next month, Southgate is this, or Sterling is this, and this, that and the other. If you're a football fan, you know what I mean. You win the Prem, and then you're sixth in the league. Ian's a Tottenham supporter, so he's got more troubles than I have. But this is the truth, that when God calls our name, some of us need to hear that once more today. He's not forgot you. He's not forsaken you. He's seen your troubles and strife and that loneliness that you've found yourself in. But he calls your name once more. And he says, get that sackcloth off you. Raise your hands in the air. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can say for me to love you more. This is the God that we serve this morning. Thanks, guys.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? Here was my tomb, yeah, till I met you. I was breathing but not alive, and all my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb, oh, till I met you. You called my name, then I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, then I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul, and now your freedom is all that I know. The old man knew Jesus when I met you, yeah. When you called my name, and I ran out of that grave. You called the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, then I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I need
shelter. I was an orphan, but you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, 'cause I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You call my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day.
Really hope you've enjoyed today's service. Don't forget, if you've not subscribed to our channel, you can do that. You can also like and share this video to help other people connect with us here at church as well.
Yep, and obviously we hope you have a great week, a great night especially.
Yes.
And we will see you when football has come home.
It's coming home.